It's Monday the 6th of August in Hiroshima. And for its 350,000 inhabitants, it's the start of a lovely day. It's rush hour. The trams are packed with people off to work. The kids are on their way to school.
I was on the second floor of the Savings Bureau. We opened all the windows facing the street full of trolley cars and said, "What a fine day."
In the morning, I had breakfast at my usual restaurant. And just as I was about to leave, 3 underclass men came in. That day, I didn't have any summer holidays.
Like every day at 7:10, the air raid sirens have rung out. But for 45 minutes now, things have been back to normal. Everyone's used to seeing bombers over the city, and no one's too bothered by the silver B-29 that splits the sky.
It was a bright sunny day. Those B-29s were flying high up in the clear sky. They were silver and so neat.
As I was walking towards Sendamachi, there was a sudden boom.
And then suddenly, something like a massive ball of fire came in through the windows.
I tried to crouch down, covering my eyes and ears.
Right over the Tsuchiya hospital. I saw the bomb as it dropped.
At 8:15, a little boy explodes 2,000 feet over Hiroshima. They call this point the hypocenter, ground zero. The sky lights up with the characteristic gamma ray flash. All living beings are blasted with radioactivity and die instantly, with no time for the pain to reach their brains. As the chain reaction unfolds, a huge fireball forms. At its center, the temperature can reach 6,000 degrees Celsius, as hot as the surface of the sun. The heat just carbonizes everyone. They just vanish in the heat. A shockwave then arises and sweeps through the city in a devastating wind of up to almost 1,000 miles an hour. A killer wind that blows bodies apart and destroys 60,000 buildings and homes. In a whirlwind of wind, steam, and radioactive particles, a mushroom-shaped cloud forms, towering 7.5 miles high over Hiroshima.
I didn't see the mushroom cloud. I was right under it.
My body was blown away with the cards in my hands. Next moment, I lost consciousness.
Obviously, I was knocked unconscious. When I came to, it was really dark. I couldn't see 100 meters in front of me.
It's just after the blast. Tsunao Tsuboi and Mitsuko Kochi are still alive, miraculously shielded by either a wall or someone's body. 70,000 others are already dead, though. For nearly 2 miles around, 90% of the city has been flattened. Huge fires are raging, and a huge cloud suffocates Hiroshima.
It was so dark that I could hardly see the face of my wife. And she was right next to me. But she was holding my hand, so I realized we hadn't been killed by the bomb. Neither of us.
Yoshito Matsushige is 32 years old, a photographer for the local Shigoku Shimbun newspaper, embedded with the military press corps. When the bomb goes off, he's less than 2 miles away from ground zero, at home with his pregnant wife. They're just finishing their breakfast.
Where the wind came through, there was a huge hole in the wall, right through both floors of the house, and the sitting room was full of debris. I pulled my camera out of the debris put on the clothes I got from headquarters. I got ready and went out.
Yoshito wants to get to the center of town, but the shockwave has completely leveled Hiroshima. The streets are nothing but debris, burnt bodies, people with dreadful wounds. It's impossible to go any further with the heat of the fire, so he turns back and heads for the Miyuki Bridge.
It was such an awful scene that I just couldn't press the shutter. Not for at least 20 minutes. I eventually took a photo, then went in a few feet closer for another. But the viewfinder was clouded over with my tears. I still remember that to this day. It was just hell.
Here they are, Yoshito Matsuhige's two photos on the Miyuki Bridge, taken on the 6th of August 1945, just 3 hours after the bomb went off. They're the very first photos to show so clearly the victims of the first atomic bomb in the history of mankind. There on the bridge, he realizes how lucky he has been, and just how violent the explosion was. He will write in his memoirs that he was born to be there at that moment. The wounded, all their eyes were fixed on me. It was as if they wanted me to tell the whole world what was happening to them. Was it cruel of me to photograph them, or was it the best thing I could do? I was in terrible conflict. Matsushige's photos, preserved here in Hiroshima at the Shigoku Shimbun press offices, should never, in fact, have existed. In Japan, during the Second World War, it was an offense to photograph events that were bad for public morale. But unbeknownst to the authorities, the forbidden photos were circulated. The negatives were seriously deteriorated, and they might well have disappeared. But in the 1970s, painstaking restoration work saved them from oblivion. What did they really go through, these people preserved for eternity on the Miyuki Bridge? Who are they? What do they remember? Scarcely a word has been written about it. But the wounded photographed by Yoshito Matsushige have been identified. Their average age now would be well over 80. Only 2 of them are left. But 10 other eyewitnesses have also been found. For the purposes of this unique investigation, a team of specialists has availed itself of the very latest technology.
We must stick to what the witnesses have told us.
When the images were scanned, new details started to emerge, hitherto invisible to the naked eye. Like these bodies here on the ground. Or this parapet blown away by the explosion. By recreating the scene in 3D, and thanks to eyewitness accounts, the photos have been brought back to life, the better to understand what really went on in Hiroshima, in the heart of the mushroom cloud. Hiroshima means the big island. It lies beside the Pacific Ocean. The many branches of the river Ota also wind through it. It's almost like a floating city. But when it gets so hot that all that water starts to boil, there's no way out of the trap. In the midst of all the frenzy, the Miyuki Bridge played a vital role for the survivors. It stood right at the edge of the fires that raged after the bomb, a mile and a half from the hypocenter. It was the bridge between life and death. On the Miyuki Bridge, Matsushige's photos are now part of an actual monument. The time has now come, though, for them to yield up their secrets. The survivors arrive at the Miyuki Bridge bearing all the scars of what they've been through in the explosion. The young girl next to the little boy looks like her hair has been burnt. Another's clothes are in tatters and her arms exposed. Off to the side, the people are all barefoot. Did they flee like that, with no shoes? Or did they lose them as they ran? If you put the photos side by side, you notice one figure that appears in both. A young girl in school uniform. Her name is Mitsuko Koshi. Here in 1945, she's 13 years old. She's in her second year at Hiroshima's business school for girls. She's under a mile from ground zero. Today, she's over 80. She still lives in Hiroshima. Mitsuko Koshi remembers everything about Monday, the 6th of August, 1945. In the photo, she's wearing the scarf given to her by her cousin, who works at the Yamaguchi police station. It's not part of Hiroshima's regular school uniform. Her sleeve is torn, and she's bleeding profusely.
My friend ran over and clung to me. She said, "Mitsuko, my head is cracked." I looked and she was covered in blood, and since she was clinging onto me, I was covered in blood too.
When the bomb goes off, Mitsuko isn't at school. She's been requisitioned to work at the Postal Savings Bank. The shockwave hits the building at 160 miles an hour. The building withstands it, but all its windows are blown in, and the flying glass seriously wounds Mitsuko and her friends. The building is right at the heart of the huge fires that follow the explosion. 6 of the young girls somehow make it, badly burned, to the Miyuki Bridge. Mitsuko Koshi is overwhelmed by what she sees there.
No one was talking. I didn't see anyone talking. Everyone was in silence, facing downwards. Some were crying in pain. Everyone looked like monsters. Some got burnt on their faces. That looked terrible.
He didn't look human. Half his body was covered in blood.
Anyone not fully clothed ended up naked.
They were everywhere, all black, their clothes in tatters.
They might have been a bit embarrassed, but it wasn't the moment to be prudish.
For the 13-year-old girl, the Miyuki Bridge is like an antechamber of hell. What Mitsuko Kochi tells us, she has kept deep inside for over 70 years.
A woman who was holding a child. She had her hair held up in a hair elastic. I suppose she was the older sister of the child. She was screaming and swirling around holding a charred child in her arms. I felt so sorry. The child was dead. She cried out a name, the child's name, I guess, and said, "Wake up, wake up." Of course, the baby never woke up. All we saw was a charred body.